I'm Phil Pustiovsky with Freedom Mentor. I'm a real estate coach, mentor, as well as a full-time investor, licensed real estate agent. Now a best-selling author. My book, How to Be a Real Estate Investor, is going very, very well on Amazon. And in this video, I am going to share with you goal setting for real estate investors. Goal setting. So what's important about a goal? Why do we set goals? It's because they work. And I don't know all the reasons why they work, but I do know that when you set goals, you put yourself or you put your brain in a position where it knows where it wants to go. And so then your brain will start to assemble things to help you get where you want to go. And there's a famous study done, apparently it was Harvard University, where graduates of Harvard, those that had written goals right at graduation on what they wanted to accomplish in life, I think they comprised a very small percentage of the overall graduating population, but they ended up being by far the most successful, and I think something in the range of over 50% of the overall financial wealth was controlled by those select people. So it's been well documented, the power of goals. So in this video, I'm not going to go too much in detail of that. Hopefully you're sold on the value of goals. What I want to talk about is how to set those as a real estate investor, what techniques to apply, what not to do, because I've seen this for so many years. I've coached and trained so many people over the years, and I've discovered how to set these goals correctly in light of seeing what everyone else has done, and also in my own personal life. Okay, so let's talk about the keys to setting a good goal. The first thing you need to do is you need to be specific. You know, I oftentimes see where new investors, what they say is, I want to do my first deal. Okay, what's that defined as? What's your first deal? Is it that you want to buy your first rental property that cash flows a minimum of $100 a month, and you didn't use any of your own cash or credit to acquire the property? Is that what you mean by a deal? Or do you mean you want to do your first maybe wholesale flip kind of assignment deal where you make at least $5,000 profit? Does that make sense? So be specific. What is it, not just that you do your first deal or you do your first 10 deals, but what do you want those deals to do for you? Be specific about it. And the next thing is you want to set a time frame. So it's not just that you want to close your first deal, but under what time frame? Close your first deal in the first 3 months, the first 6 months, the first 2 days. What is that time frame? Now, as you're going to notice, I'm not going to tell you what goals to set for yourself, because what's going to happen is when you set goals, number 3, you're going to want to review them. And naturally, through the review process, you'll start to see the likelihood of being able to accomplish those goals in those time frames, or what you need to do to change them. Because one of the careful things you don't want to try to do is to put too many limitations on yourself based on what you know now, because it's amazing what can happen when you set goals. So if you set a goal, specifically you want to buy your first rental property that cash flows $100 a month, you didn't have to put any money down, you didn't use any of your own credit, and you want to acquire that property within the first 3 months of getting started, you got your time frame, you got your specifics. Then what you're going to do is you're going to follow up with that once a week, once a month at the absolute least. I check all of my goals once a week. Okay, I literally set aside a time every single Monday morning where I go through all of my goals, not just business, but also personal life. And so that way I'm always looking at saying, okay, what do I need to do differently to get to this result within this time frame? Because I know where I am today, and you know this time frame is coming up closer. And I've definitely noticed where a lot of people feel like they don't reach their goals. And part of it is that they're not continuing to review. And they're also, I'm going to talk about this in just a moment, there are some things that you don't ever want to do when you're dealing with goals. All right, and one more quick tidbit. I'm a Christian, and so I'm going to speak to just the Christians here real quick, and that is that your goals are important. Now, if you're a Christian, the most important thing you can do is pray about them, okay? Because ultimately, Christians have found, and you can look through this historically, that when they have lived a life whereby it was in God's will, they were happier, more joyful, more fulfilled. So, that's just for the Christians in the room here, but and that is to pray about those goals, because if it's not God's will, then you don't want that to be one of your goals. Okay, so let's talk about what not to do. And in order to get there, what I first want to explain is this concept of expectations. Okay? What not to do is set expectations that you're going to reach those goals and the time frames you set. Instead, you want to set it as a goal that you are going to do. You're going to do everything you can to get there within that time frame. There was a interesting book written by a guy named Viktor Frankl called The Man's Search for Meaning. Now, Viktor Frankl was I think it was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but he had the unfortunate situation of being thrown into a Nazi concentration camp during the Holocaust. And what he did while he was there was really interesting. He made mental notes of what happened in that experience and who survived and who didn't. And he discovered that the kiss of death was for someone to say, set an expectation that we'll be out by Christmas. Well, what would happen was Christmas would come and go. They'd still be in the concentration camp. It would crush their spirit. And those were the first people not to make it. The people that lasted the longest, the highest survival rate, were those people that attached meaning to their suffering. They attached meaning to not getting out of the concentration camp, not hitting their expectations. And that's so important for you, because if you have any plan to become a real estate investor, I've got some news for you. There are going to be a couple of experiences that may not meet your expectations. You know, they may be more difficult than you expected. And so what happens is, if you can attach meaning to that challenge, it's going to help you stay focused, stay motivated, and help you get to your goals. But instead, if you set the expectation, I'll give you a perfect example. An example would be this. So you watch some of my other videos, you get entertained, you get excited, you get motivated, you want to be a real estate investor, and you say, you know what? I am going to be out of my job in 6 months. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to be full-time real estate in 6 months. But what happens if 6 months come along and you've done some deals, but you're not making as much money as you would need in order to quit? Well, if you expect to be out in 6 months and you're not there, you can do what happened to those people in those concentration camps. Now, I don't want to give too much of an analogy here between a concentration camp and business, but the idea is that it could crush your spirit. And a crushed spirit is one that is not going to be motivated to follow through with their goals. So you set a goal, and if you don't reach it, here's what you do. You ask the question, what do I need to do differently to get there? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to read or learn about? What do I need to do to adjust to get there? Or does the goal need to be adjusted? Did I set a crazy goal that's just completely erroneous? Does that make sense? So it's more like a trial and error, like a split testing. You're ebbing and flowing, and you're trying to figure out what you need to do differently to get to that path, to get to where you want to be, that goal. But if you don't get there in the time frame you've set, you don't have the expectation. And that is going to free you to focus and be productive. So in other words, things that you also shouldn't say, let me add this, are things like, let's say you don't reach your goal right away. The worst thing to say to yourself, the worst, don't do this. Don't say this. Why does this always happen to me? I have heard that phrase so many times. That is a terrible thing to tell your brain. Because your brain will come up with answers as to why you're always having that experience, right? No, you don't want to do that. You want to tell your brain, what do I need to do differently to get here? I'm obviously not there yet. What I've done in the past hasn't hit my results yet. What do I need to do differently? What do I need to shift up? What do I need to change? Do I need to change anything? Do I just need to stay in the path? Let your brain do some constructive work for you as opposed to crippling you by asking the wrong questions of yourself. Does that make sense? All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video on goal setting for real estate investors. Hopefully you've got the 3 steps. Number 1, to be very specific, set a time frame, and then review those goals. Review them weekly, please. If you can only do it once a month, that's fine too. And adjust your path. And don't set expectations. Set goals. Let your expectation be that you're thankful to be alive each day. You're thankful to even be watching this video. But don't set expectations like, I'm going to be somewhere by this date and that's all there is to it. Actually, to go back to that Christian thing I was talking about, I've definitely met some Christians that take the approach of name it and claim it. Where, this is the way it's going to be and this is when it's going to happen and I've named it, I've claimed it, it's going to happen. Well, I have no problems with goals, but when you set those kind of expectations and you don't hit it, it can really crush you. So again, I would argue that it's really God's will that's going to happen from a Christian biblical perspective, and so I don't know that we as humans have the right to tell God what's going to happen tomorrow. But y'all may have comments about that. You may put them below this because I don't know what this to be a religious talk, but. Goals and this sort of thing does seem to spread into faith a little bit. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this. I'm Phil Pustiowski with FreedomMentor.com. We're real estate mentors and coaches, and we're really passionate about what we're doing here, and that is we're trying to help people become more successful at real estate investing. And one video at a time, one blog article at a time. You can read some more about this. I have a link just below this video that takes me to the website and where I wrote out what I just shared with you here if you want to get a little bit more detail. All right, Phil Pustiowski, the Freedom Mentor. Thanks for being with me.